Hello, everyone. This is Wednesday, October 28th. I'm Dina Hall, and this is Flex, Adapt with Intent. We are contemplating performing and visual arts during uncertain times. And I'm really excited about this episode tonight. I have two wonderful, lovely, gracious women from here in the northeastern region of the United States, which is a bit of a hotbed for folk music for a very, very long time. And I dare say that we have someone representing the oldest folk venue, longest continuously running folk venue in the United States, and that is Sarah Craig from Caffé Lena, and arguably the second oldest, longest continuously running folk venue in the United States, and that is Ramona LaBarre from Godfrey Daniels here in Bethlehem, PA. And we're going to welcome both of these ladies to the webcast right now. Hi, y'all.
Hey, Dina.
Hello.
Thanks for having us. It's great to see you, Ramona.
Good to see you too, Sarah.
Yeah,
I've seen
this is
all the
very
time,
nice.
so.
You too. Yeah. It's sometimes I have multiple guests on at once, and I thought the two of you would be a very natural conversation because of the similarities and the shared struggles of what we both do. Sarah, how long have you been with Caffé Lena?
I celebrated my 25th anniversary with a really nice event at Caffé Lena just weeks before the shutdown. It was in the middle of February. I started there in February 1st of 1995.
Congratulations on a milestone.
Yeah. Ramona, what's your history with Godfrey's?
I started volunteering at Godfrey's in the late 1980s and just became more involved behind the scenes, and here I am.
And your work started as a volunteer and then board member,
Yes.
and then you,
Yes.
at some point, the job of managing director came available, so you moved from vice president off the board to managing
Yes.
director. Sarah, did you come on? Sarah, were you an employee from the start, or were you a volunteer?
I came on as the executive director, which was a very bold move for my board of directors because I was terribly unqualified when I first arrived. But it was a much, much smaller organization and very quiet at that time in the mid-90s. And I actually came having been the executive director of another nonprofit that had nothing to do with music. I was the director of a nonprofit peace organization in the Boston area and moved up to Saratoga, or actually in the wilds of Washington County, which is a very rural county in upstate New York. I live about nearly an hour from Caffé Lena. Started looking for a job. And I was getting a little bit anxious about this move that I had made from Cambridge, Massachusetts to Shushan, New York, population about 800. And I asked my husband, who is more familiar with the area, what there was that was kind of cool to do. And he had mentioned Caffé Lena. And I'd heard of Caffé Lena because I was near Passim down in Cambridge. So I knew a little bit about the folk world, and actually through that year and a half or so that we were going out before I moved to upstate New York and traveling back and forth between upstate New York and Boston, we got obsessed with the New Lost City Ramblers and the Greenbrier Boys and some other old time music, which at first I thought sounded kind of comical, but then it really grew on me. And so I was really interested in the folk revival era. So I applied for all kinds of nonprofit jobs when I moved here. I just knew that I wanted to stay in the nonprofit sector. And one of the jobs that I applied for was just anonymous, and it said nonprofit arts organization seats full or part-time executive director. That was it. It turned out to be Caffé Lena, and it turned out that I was the only person who applied for the job, and I was hired.
Serendipity.
And that was my auspicious beginning.
Oh my goodness. I want to acknowledge a few
Massive
folks checking in. Louise Baker, nice to see you both. Catherine Rondeau says hello, Dina, Ramona, Sarah, and Louise. Mizzy Gee, I know who that is. She says hello, ladies. And Brian McCloskey's watching. Got some real folk power brokers here tonight. This is what we want. We want to build some community tonight while we're talking, because these are the folks that support, what we're all doing. It's such a close community, right? How did the two of you meet? Anybody?
Well, I would say that we met at NERFA, and Ramona would have introduced herself with a little story about the connection between our venues, and maybe she can share that.
That's right. It had to be NERFA, and I remember seeing you at Old Songs several times. So I remember hearing about the time when Lena passed away. Was that 1990?
She passed away in 1989. We just passed the anniversary. Yeah.
Okay. So that's when I really started hearing about Lena, because in the cafe, because of Cindy and Dave, who were here, talked very fondly. And in fact, Dave Fry had been to Lena many times because he grew up in upstate New York. And so Caffé Lena was really his influence for opening a club here on the south side of Bethlehem. He was finished with college. And then I noticed, probably on a mailer, maybe a few years into the 90s, maybe early to mid 90s, that the membership levels were similar, if not identical, to Godfrey. And I thought to myself, wow, so that's where Godfrey's got the membership levels. They modeled after Cafe Lena. And I found out in recent years that the club was a for-profit club until Lena passed away, and then the community around the cafe then applied for nonprofit status and looked to Godfrey's for a membership program, and used so for a while there we had matching membership levels. So yes, and I've called on Sarah more than a few times with questions about just things that have come up in the running of the venue, and you've always been very helpful.
I remember once we tried a little experiment with our membership programs where we had we would honor each other's benefits at Godfrey's and Lena's and at Passim, because all three clubs are really so similar, have very similar DNA, and anybody who enjoys one is going to enjoy the others and feel at home. So we extended our membership benefits to all three. And frankly, I'd still be happy to do that. If a Godfrey's member walks through the door, they'll get a discount.
Same here. Absolutely.
I totally think you're onto something there.
Absolutely.
I want to show this comment from Louise Baker. She says she met both of you at NERFA. The first time was 2014, and she was a newbie. Wow. She was very glad for the counsel and support that she received from Sarah over the years. This is the thing, This is the thing. We got to be, willing to share as much as we can, so that because it's all for the greater good. It's all for the greater good. Lift each other up. So over the years, I know that you've all seen things change. You've watched, I remember Ramona talking about what she watches historically, in an election year, what happens as far as, people holding on to their money and all of that. And we watch trends, and we watch, there was that time when the gas prices were up to $4 a gallon, and our touring folk artists had a real hard time, leaving Massachusetts to come to, and even just to go up and down the East Coast was difficult for them. I think things maybe have leveled off a little bit in that area, aside from the elephant in the room right now. But do you think we've sort of, come to some stabilization as far as that goes? Or do you still see the trends?
Well, I would say that the Cafe Lena was on a roll that would have buffered us from the effects of the election, the election year downturn in fundraising and some of the other things that are going on. But, COVID just, as my board president said, ripped the needle off of the record. And there's nothing like being shut down to create a challenge. So, I feel like what we were coming into, though, was a few years of just a golden age of folk music that had been growing since probably around 2005. I would date it back to, where there was this unbelievable catalog of fabulous bands on the road all the time, who were willing to come play at Caffé Lena, who, appreciated the legacy of our stage. And I just felt like it was so easy in a way to put together an amazing roster where you could come into that room any night and experience a show that would really land, that would blow you away and give you this amazing experience. And when you immerse yourself in community, when you value your customers as friends and neighbors, and you treat the bands that way, and then you combine that with this world-class musicianship, I mean, that is going to just put fuel in the gas tank of any organization. Everybody who walks in has a great experience. And so things just kept building and building and building. And then, last year, one of my longtime dreams was to have Judy Collins come play at Caffé Lena. And we had Judy come, and we had Doc Severinsen come and do a few nights. We had John Pizzarelli and, all these big name artists, as well as, really exciting up and coming bands like Darlingside and Mipso. And just the list goes on and on. The Steel Wheels, just fabulous music. So a lot of that just gave us this incredible cushion going into COVID. But, anything to do with, the challenge is just on a whole different level than anything we've seen before. That's what I'm getting at. Things were going great. I think we could have weathered anything, but this is just shocking.
I would say that Godfrey was on that same role. It was really easy to bring in high caliber artists, and we were having some of the names like Maria Muldaur, who had played here decades before, were coming back in. We were on a really good roll, and then COVID happened. So the challenge now is to maintain that connection between the artists and the audience that they all value and appreciate. And so we moved to live stream. And honestly, it took us we were pretty slow getting there. For me personally, I just kept thinking, starting in March, I kept thinking we were going to be reopening sometime soon, within a couple of months. And then by May, we realized it was going to be a longer time, and maybe even to the end of this year. Now it may be another full year from now. It's so unknown. But fortunately, all the relationships are there, and the venue, and I'm sure you're seeing this at Caffé Lena too, the venue is cherished and loved and receiving a lot of support. So I really feel like it's important to give back. And it's true that a live stream concert is not the same as being there, but it's better than nothing. And it's all we have. It's what we have right now. And so we just have to work with that. And we've had a lot of fun with ours, actually. We just had Tom Paxton and the Don Juans. They did a little tour out of a studio in Nashville, and they handled everything. All we had to do was turn it on. And so that was a lot of fun. So we're slowly getting back into it now and starting to book into early next year. And we've yet to do anything live from the venue, although we're talking about it and trying to make something happen where, like you're doing at Caffé Lena. And how often are you doing that?
Every night.
Every night. Wow.
Every night.
Yeah.
Wow.
So are these local
we
artists?
missed a few nights here, and we've missed a few nights here and there, but we made that decision at the beginning of the shutdown, actually. So the way it happened in New York was we actually had an off-site concert booked with Josh Ritter on March 12th. And it was at a 500 seat venue. And it was, of course, had been sold out for weeks. And it was a church that was just about a block from Cafe Lena. Josh got to town, his whole entourage got to town. I mean, you can imagine how much preparation there had been and coordination. He rolled in. We had actually an interview taped at the cafe, and then he went over to the church. And that day, Governor Cuomo got on TV and said, we're limiting gatherings to 500, nothing over 500. And we had a 500 seat venue sold out. So we were scratching our heads and thinking, well, it's legal, but is it the right thing to do? And Josh and his whole management team got over to the church. We'd spent about, $3,000 setting up a sound system in there and building a stage. And he got up on stage to do his sound check, and he shook his head and he said, no, it's not the right thing to do. We're going to cancel. And we all let out this sigh of relief, because I think nobody really wanted to be the person to pull the plug. We're all kind of looking at the plug, but nobody quite wanted to be the one to pull it. And we all breathed a sigh of relief, but also entered that state of shock that hit us all at the beginning of this. So then in the next 24 hours came the order that any place had to operate at 50% capacity. Our show the next night was with John Paul White at Cafe Lena, which was another show that we were incredibly excited about. And so we had to take back half of the tickets. So what we did was we contacted the whole audience and we said, hey, we're going to be streaming it live. But if anybody wants to give up their tickets, give you a full refund right away, maybe you just want to stay home and watch from home. 50% of the people gave up their tickets. It was perfect.
Wow.
Lena's magic from up above.
That's what you need.
Wow. And so we had half the audience come, and we knew at that point by showtime that it was going to be the last show, that things were shutting down after that night. And the feeling of the room, oh my gosh, it was just so powerful. That was one of the most powerful performances I've seen, because it was entering this unknown territory. What's happening? We had never been in the grips of something so total as a pandemic before. And we had no idea what was going to happen. Gosh, we thought we might be shut down as long as till the beginning of April.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
This incredibly powerful show. And then the next day we were completely closed, and we were actually at that point still allowed to have the musicians come in and be on stage. I can't remember what it was. I think it was gatherings of maybe 10 or fewer you were still allowed to have. So the musicians came in. It was a children's show, and we live streamed it on the 14th. And we had all of these parents writing in, typing into the comments, oh, this means the world to us. The schools have been closed for about half a week at that point. The kids are so cooped up. They're dancing around the living room. This is wonderful. And we said, as a staff, we said to each other, okay, this is what we're doing. At first, it seemed like a joke. We're going to have the performers come in and just stream to an empty room. Ha, ha, ha. And then we realized, no, that's exactly what we're going to do, because all the people are out there and they need this. And that's what we did. So we're going to do it every night. And we kept it up. And then came the order when nobody was allowed to leave their houses. Nobody could be at the venue. Everything was completely shut down. We went into our archive of live streams from past shows, rebroadcast them as viewing parties with the band that was playing on the screen hosting the chat room with us. So we handled all of the tech. The band chatted with their audience. That was very well received at a time when people were really scared, really wigged out, and they needed that connection. They needed normalcy. They needed to feel like something positive was happening in the world, like there was still a little bit of joy. It meant the world to them. And then we managed to, after 4 applications, get approved as an essential business on the basis of being a broadcast facility. So as a broadcast facility, we could have essential personnel in the place, and so we could bring in musicians to stream live from the stage.
That's remarkable.
And that's what we've been doing.
Wow.
And now, as a broadcast facility, we can have a live studio audience. That's brand new, and we're tiptoeing into that now. Yeah.
Sarah, I have a question regarding your staff. Now, how many people do you actually have on staff?
So full-time, there are basically 3 of us who are full-time and 4 of us who are part-time. It's grown a lot.
Yeah. So you actually have people who are there and in place and they were able to sort of just jump into action in order to get the broadcasting set up very quickly, it sounds like.
We have been live streaming for about 6 years. So we started on Concert Window, which everybody watching this and Ramona, everybody knows Concert Window, and with just one single camera, inexpensive camera from the back of the room. But when Concert Window shut down and we moved our streams to YouTube and made them free. And then when we did a big renovation, which was finished right at the beginning of 2017, as part of that renovation, we installed a very sophisticated live streaming setup with 3 robotic cameras in the listening room and a whole Pro Tools mixing board to be able to mix the live broadcast. And we didn't really have a business plan around it, but we had a nice grant from the state of New York to install this really state-of-the-art equipment. And that is what saved us in the pandemic, was having this really extraordinary broadcast setup. And we've gotten really good at work.
That's great. Yeah. Like you rolled right into it.
Yeah. We were ready to go. We had everything we needed. We were ready to go. We had the equipment and the personnel that knew how to use it.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think that's been one of the biggest struggles for a lot of places to find ways to do that. There's a major organization here in Bethlehem that runs year round, all kinds of music constantly, but they don't have, from their facility, they don't have broadcasting at all. So when this all happened back in March, the first thing they did was, similarly, they went out into the community to a lot of the locals who were here, basically at home with an iPhone, and asked, and then we're pushing out those individuals' live streams. So having that equipment in place and people, knowing what they're doing to use it was absolutely a wonderful benefit for you.
It was. And in fact, and so speaking of, the scale of different organizations, it's, very unpredictable who went into this in a good position to meet its challenges versus who didn't. And, just having a big facility and a big bank account didn't necessarily help if you didn't have the equipment that you needed. Yeah. And I think that leveling of the playing field has been a fascinating experience. So we have, groups that meet in our region of different venues, different presenters, to just have weekly check-ins and figure out how to support each other and what kind of resources we can share. And it includes a 3,500 capacity venue. It includes Saratoga Performing Arts Center, which can have 50,000 people, and it has little Caffé Lena with 110 people. And somehow now we're all on the same team in a way that we never have been before, and facing the same challenges in ways that we never have before. And I think that that's really one of the silver linings of this pandemic, is that sense of us being able to teach each other and help each other in a very open, democratic way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that goes to one of the questions we were going to talk about, is the role of venues in holding together the music community at this time. And I know, Ramona, Godfrey's has been really working towards how to maintain maintaining our mission and presenting things to the membership who want, you want to give them, at this time, you want to give them something for their membership. You want to give them something in return.
Yes, as much as possible and as broad as possible. So, as I said, we've been working on, and it's like 2 steps forward and 3 steps back to try and arrange a live stream from the club. And really, we had 2 of them planned with dates that just aren't going to happen. And it's really frustrating. But for us, of course, we don't have the equipment in-house. And so we weren't prepared that way. I mean, we did some concert window, but we've also seen in the region some really nice, like what you guys have, some multi-camera, state-of-the-art sound live streams from a venue with no audience. And so we would have to pay, somebody to come in here and do that. And it's a few $100s. So who's making a few $100s on a concert when it's not COVID? We pay the performers and we cover their hospitality and try and cover our overhead, our staff and everything else. But it's just really caught us off guard, this thing.
Well, I could tell you that, having this great camera set up and having so much support from the community financially made us feel like, how can we use this capacity to help other nonprofits right now? Mm-hmm. And we have done a tremendous amount of kind of team building and community outreach over the last few years. So we have a big network of nonprofits that we work with in our area. So we started with just having a conversation series that we ran for a few months, where we would have the executive directors of different, mostly social service and environmental nonprofits, come in and just have a good solid chat on the stage about their inspirations, what's going on now, and their needs, and just a chance to create some content that could connect with their following. And now I'm having conversations with some other music nonprofits to use our stage to create a live series for their viewers. And my offer is, and if you want to do it, you can come on up from Bethlehem, Ramona, but you put up your own drapes, put up your own banner, make it your stage for the night. And, if you give us 10% of the tip jar, or just out and out pay us something to cover our costs, then it's yours for the night, and we'll handle all the tech and make it happen for you. Okay. Because, and here's the reason. The reason is that the music industry has been beyond decimated, right? Decimated means reduced by 1/10. Well, it sounds like it could be as many as 90% of venues that are not going to make it through this shutdown. Absolutely. If what we're hearing from NEVA is correct. Yeah. So how are you supposed to have a national tour with only 10% of the venues still standing? You can't. So it is necessary for us to save each other right now, because that's a network that requires a certain density in order to work as a music industry. So
Yes.
so it behooves us to make sure that, there's more than just Caffé Lena in the capital region.
Right.
There's a great important thing you just mentioned. I think I heard you mention NIVA, National Independent Venue Association. And for anyone who's not familiar with that, the hashtag Save Our Stages is something that you can do a bit of a search on, and you can find some information. You can go to this website as well. But, what these people are doing, and maybe either of you know who is actually, at the forefront of this, but these folks have been working very, very hard, reaching out to and getting the rest of us to also reach out to our legislators to make sure that that money is somehow funneled into these independent venues, and for exactly what you're talking about, Sarah. We had a call.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
They have been wonderful, and it's mostly commercial venues, and it's certainly not all folk world venues. It's really kind of the whole span of the different types of live music venues that exist. I will say that as a nonprofit, as a 501c3 nonprofit, we are prohibited from advocating for any specific legislation. So the most we've been able to do in terms of the lobbying is either on our personal pages say, I am not speaking as the executive director of Caffé Lena. I'm speaking as Sarah, who loves folk music. Go call your legislator about this, about the HEROES Act, and including a bailout for the music industry in that funding. And then from the Caffé Lena platform, we simply say, there is an organization called Save Our Stages. And if you love music, you should check out their homepage, because we think that you'll be very interested in what they're suggesting we do to save live music.
Right.
We have used the Save Our Stages hashtag in the corner of our live stream screens for the last few months, really trying to get that concept out there.
And we have a question that I want to bring up and ask you both to look at this. This is from Louise Baker. What are your thoughts about growing a larger audience for live stream shows? There are potential viewers out there that are not on Facebook and have no idea that these shows exist.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. So we use YouTube, right? We use YouTube.
Godfrey stream goes out to YouTube and Facebook. Yep.
Can these streams go to the artists' websites?
Well, from what I know, there has to be. It depends on what is in place on either the website or the platform, similar to what we're using. This particular platform, StreamYard, which is it's up there with a lot of the others right now, but it doesn't allow for going direct to websites. But you would have to have that sort of portal or a plug-in or something on your website to begin with. So, Sarah, you're going out to Facebook and YouTube, right?
And Twitter. Our Facebook, as well as the artist Facebook, we use Restream, and Restream allows you to broadcast simultaneously to up to 11 different platforms. So we actually went through this really tough decision about whether to put our streams behind a paywall or to try and get as many eyes on them as possible and put them right out, in the public sphere, and just let people chip into a tip jar. And we tried both, and we definitely decided to land on the just get as many eyes on it as possible, with the long game of beefing up the viewership as much as possible, so that when we return to business as usual, we will have a phenomenal live stream following, as well as full seats in the venue, and that will bring the biggest paychecks and exposure for the musicians as well as for the venue. How to overcome the fact that people aren't on Facebook? I agree. I'm barely on Facebook myself, and it's interesting when we have we as we said, stream simultaneously to Facebook and to YouTube, and far and away the most people are watching on YouTube, interestingly, and not so much on Facebook. So I think the only exception to that has been a show we did with Driftwood just a few days ago, in which their Facebook following was so strong that the most people were watching on the band's Facebook page. But I think that we need to be advertising these opportunities in the magazines, in print magazines, on websites, Brooklyn Vegan, No Depression, all these different websites, Rolling Stone. We should be advertising there, and so that's something we're starting to look at to try and get people turned on to this opportunity.
So you're talking about bringing them to Facebook or bringing them to YouTube.
Yes, exactly. Free live streams every night from from Godfrey Daniels or from, Caffé Lena or wherever, and get people turned on to doing that as a way of, consuming music.
So could I ask a question? Who are you? Who are you bringing in every night? Are these regionally local people, or are people traveling a distance to get to Caffé Lena to perform?
Yeah, so that is a really interesting question, because of course the rules and guidelines change all the time, and I have gotten to a point where I don't think I can stand to unbook another show right now. It's just, I don't want any more cancellations. Yeah. So, I mean, we are so blessed to be where we are, right, Ramona, in the Northeast, where the population of musicians is much denser than it is in many parts of the country. So right now there's a list as long as my arm of states that would have to quarantine if they came into New York, and that's probably true in Pennsylvania too. So we lost a few shows when upcoming performers' states wound up on the quarantine list. But mostly we've been booking from, we're safe with Massachusetts, Vermont, Maine, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and then all of New York State. And so that gives us a pretty good supply of musicians. What we are finding, though, is you never know who's going to be comfortable getting in their car, driving up the interstate, stopping at rest stops, and finally landing at Caffé Lena, and who is not going to be comfortable with that. Maybe the performer themselves is just fine, but their spouse at home is, immune compromised. And so you can't just assume because somebody's, 25 years old and hale and hearty that they're going to come from far away, hours away, to come do a show on your stage. So it's interesting. I've seen it ebb and flow a little bit. There was a period there where there were a lot of kind of home live streams happening, very DIY, just kind of singing into a laptop or into an iPhone, very unsophisticated, and just all about connection and heart, and not so much about production. And I think that really helped a lot of us get through some dark days. But then over the summer, I started to hear a lot of the musicians and possibly even more so their agents starting to grumble a little bit about that and say, it's probably not good for our brand to have you put out so much of this kind of not very high quality content. And then I started to hear from a lot of agents saying, so I understand you have this live stream, you're still doing that, how's it work? What's the pay structure like? And like I said, we decided to keep it free, and we have people coming up from Cape Cod, from out in the Rochester area, from New York City, and then a local act over the next 4 days. So come.
And what kind of regs are you having to follow? What's the protocol? Take your temperature?
No,
distancing?
the guidance doesn't require temperature taking. We were doing that at first, and we actually felt like it was not providing us with useful information, which I think a lot of us know that that's a little bit sketchy. So, no, right now, I have, and I would be happy to share this with anybody who is interested in getting a copy of it if it would be useful for you. So, when I make an offer to the artists, we have a whole COVID safety protocol sheet that goes out with that offer so that they can see what we're able to do. We've also screened for local hotels that are doing really well with their safety. So, we know where to send them for overnight accommodations if they're going to be staying in town. We cannot afford to have an outbreak, basically, to have one tied back to our venue. People live in fear of that, and we don't want to do that. In terms of people's health and safety, we don't want to do it because it would compromise our ability to keep doing what we're doing. So now that we're starting to let in a live studio audience, that increases the risk, of course. The more people you're dealing with, the more possibility for a misstep.
Yeah.
So it's people get instructions and there is no wavering from them. And, after the show and before the show, those windows are wide open and the entire place is scrubbed after every show, every microphone, every windscreen, every stand, every cable, everything is like, it's as close to hospital grade sanitation as we can make it. I can't wait to smell cookies instead of Lysol in that place.
So you don't have any
Totally
concessions
get
going
that.
at all, is that right? No concessions?
We have, sorry, say that again, Ramona. I just want to make sure I got that right.
You don't have any
No.
concessions? Okay, right.
We can make coffee and we still have a refrigerator full of pretty good beer, but we will send a runner out for takeout if they want to have takeout. We do have a lot of restaurants in the neighborhood, but most people are being super cautious and they might arrive with their own food, for example, or they take care of that before they come.
Yeah.
And no, for the live studio audience, it means the people are coming in right before the show. They're sitting, socially distanced. They have their mask on from the time they arrive to the time they leave. There is no food or drink, and they don't get up from their seats once they're in their seats. It's really, really rigid. Yeah. But fun.
I think it's great.
Well, I
Wonderful.
read something yesterday. A venue in northern New Jersey, that had opened at 20% capacity, according to New Jersey, laws. They had opened at 20% capacity with rules, and there were 3 out of the 4 shows that they had presented, they had difficulty enforcing, and people were removing their masks and refused to comply, and so they had to backpedal and close once again. So none of us want that to happen. We don't want to have to go through that.
So
Yeah, we no compliance problems. We're
great.
grown up.
That's great. That's great. It's always that worry, who's not going to behave. So, one of the things that we talk about is the how do we put ourselves up there as you said that Caffé Lena got certification as a essential because of the broadcast studio, and then we talk about why is music important? Why do we need to fund music at a time when people need food and housing and all of those other things? And from my perspective, it all supports the economy, because that the industry that we're in employs so many people. And if we're not employing them, then they're out of work and everything else begins to suffer. Do you have any thought, given any thought to any of that? I know it's a struggle for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to speak to that. There's a tremendous interest in supporting the creative economy. in our area. I think that's kind of one of the new buzzwords, the creative economy, which encompasses much more than, performing arts. It includes graphic design and culinary arts and all kinds of things. But there has been a lot of research done demonstrating how economically valuable these organizations are and how much impact they have on the hotels and the restaurants and the downtown shops. And all of that is great. But there's a part of me that has always said, even if we don't contribute one penny to the local economy, the arts are still essential because we are human beings, and it is one of the things that we do. It is one of the unequivocally good things about us that we create art. And I think particularly when we're feeling so on the brink of the abyss for so many reasons right now, the pandemic and the racism that we're confronting, and so many people struggling financially and feeling in fear of their health and losing loved ones, it becomes one of those moments that just cracks us open, that makes us emotionally vulnerable and makes us wonder about who we are and what we're doing in this world. And that is where art and music come from. And even at the best of times, when our world is strong and well and we take our next meal for granted, when you sit at a concert that goes right through you, it takes you into that place of vulnerability and openness. And we have 3 murals on the wall at Caffé Lena that show the story of where our music came from. And the first one shows a Black man and 2 men who probably are maybe Irish or Scottish, English. They're in a forest clearing and they are making music together. There's a fiddle, there's a banjo, and there's a man singing, and his chains are breaking. And that is where the roots of American folk music are, is in that merging of the African and the British Isles music. And it happened in forest clearings. It happened on the decks of ships. It happened anywhere there were people brought together. And we have to remember that is how essential our art is. It is part of being a human being, is singing. And so that's why we need it right now. That's why we can never be without it. And even if it doesn't put butts in the seats at restaurants or, make products move off the downtown shops, it doesn't mean it's not important. But it does do all that. And so I think there's that, I believe it's an apocryphal quote from so-called Winston Churchill, but he did write about things along these lines. It was, a moment in World War II. Money was very tight, and there was talk about cutting the budget for the National Symphony. And he said, if we don't have music, what are we fighting for? And
Yes.
We need these moments in which we can see ourselves as good creative creatures.
Yes, you're reminding me that, and I know you know this in Caffé Lena, that there is magic in this space. And we have new people coming in here before the shutdown, of course, but who were coming in, new people every week, and they're just the experience that they have. And to witness that, I always said that was my second favorite part of being here at the shows, is watching the audience walk out on air, so happy, big smiles, beaming, and just having spent 2 hours of just being relieved from anything else that might have been going on in their lives. And it is magic with a capital M. It's good to be.
And it enables people to go out into the world and to be their best selves, to go out and to get on with whatever it is that they need to do in their lives, their work, their family relationships, their parenting. It allows them to be their best selves. Absolutely. And right now, with so many so much trauma in the world, for children, for parents, for grandparents, for all of us, for workers who are frightened and needing to face whatever they have to face out there. I mean, those musical experiences, even if they're just happening online, those moments of being together and being open and hearing something beautiful, I think enables us to face this moment.
Yes, we really need that more than ever right now. So,
And so, a lot of people that we know from this particular broad community really are staying home. They're staying home. They're doing the things they want because they want this to return to some. They want to be able to come back out and see those shows. They do. They know that the better behaved they are, the sooner they're going to be able to get up and go out and play. And that goes for a lot of the artists that you were talking about booking. They're all just they're hanging out. They're ready to go. They're ready to do whatever they have to. But they're not looking to jump the gun on anything. So in light of all of that, and I know that people are putting out records right now. They're recording, they're releasing new music. It's kind of unbelievable what's happening. So I was going to ask, and I think Sarah brought this up to me earlier, is like, what do we think is going to be left of this particular industry, not knowing when that return might be? I mean, it might be as late as 2022 from what I read today, which is a whole other year. I mean, how do we predict any of that? I don't know.
well, one thing is the live streams aren't going to go away even when we're reopen again safely, and so the audience will be larger. And I think whenever it happens that we're reopening, I think it's going to come back rapidly. People are having to be careful and probably choose not to go out. I was going to ask you, Sarah, if are you all at capacity for your in-studio audience?
We can have up to 25 people in the building, and that includes the staff and performers. So it's anywhere from, say 15 to 20 people who would be able to come to a show out of a normal capacity of 110.
And are all those seats filled, or are people staying home?
This is brand new.
Oh, okay.
So, and we're not even really, at this point, we're pretty much just sticking with the performers inviting family, and maybe we bring a few members in. Like, that is very handpicked.
Right.
We're taking it really, really slow. But yeah, I don't know how things are going to come back, and that's a big question mark. I do think that the toolkit of the music world has expanded. All of this live streaming, I agree with Ramona, it's not going to just disappear. It's going to become, I hope, a way to attract more people to the actual venues, get the songs, the independent music that we love into more people's lives. And I mean, what we have found is that our audience, instead of picking and choosing maybe one or two shows a month, are watching night after night after night, all kinds of things that they would normally have passed over. And so it's very good for people in terms of encouraging exploration and discovering new music. That's all really wonderful. I think my concern is that, and Ramona, I'm sure you've seen this too. It used to be, Bill Staines would call you up, Roy Bookbinder would call you up and say, hey, how about I come on January 24th? And you look at your paper calendar and you go, yep, that works. I'll see you in January, Bill. And that was how you booked a show. Yes. And now, there are so many layers of management and promotion and booking and, coordinating the announcement and developing all of the promotional assets. And it's this very elaborate thing. And when, when I would send out email messages to some of these agents who I had worked with for years and years, these days I get a message back saying they're furloughed or they're gone, they've moved on. I mean, the entire thing is shut down.
Right.
There is no music industry right now.
Right.
It's shocking. And so I don't think that you can just reconstitute that quickly. So while I think that you can get a venue open, while I think you can get a person into their car with their guitar and get them to go from place to place, that whole kind of elaborate infrastructure that enabled such a golden age of music, that is gone. And it's not going to come back quickly.
Yeah, it's different. That's true.
Yeah.
Thank you. So much of this has been really well explained and articulated, and I know the folks that are watching are taking copious notes on all of the things we're talking about. If we could somehow end on a bit of a happy note and look forward. Sarah, you mentioned renovations at Caffé Lena. When did that happen? Last year?
That was actually right at the tail end of 2017 going into 2016 going into 2017. So we've had about 3 years of the new Caffé Lena. Same space, but enhanced.
Time is passing quickly for me. I can't tell you how many things happened 5 years ago that I thought was last year. And so Godfrey was looking at 45th anniversary coming up in 2021, and that's going to be sort of overlooked and move on into the year after that. And you were also looking at some in-house renovations and improvements, right,
Yes.
Ramona?
Yes, we were.
Some things inside the room.
Nothing as major as what Caffé Lena did, but we were talking about elevating the stage, new carpet, new flooring, recreating the green room that's in the basement for the artists, and actually had written for some funding for that, but it all just kind of disappeared. In a sense, this could be a good time to pursue that now that we're closed. It's still something that contractors have to look at, and I think that actually they're just really recently back to work. So, but there's plenty to be done. It would be nice to have to unveil things, say, when we come back.
Yeah. So it's sort of like going to have a grand reopening of sorts for both. I think that's something everybody can look forward to.
Yeah.
And so one other thing I was thinking about, I know from Godfrey's standpoint, we have a very large group of loyal volunteers and people from the community, the music community, who are part of our jams, part of the open mic and all of that. And I know that, an organization and a group like this has to, and I saw that Caffé Lena had a group that you also have some, I think they might be old time jam. I think I saw a picture of.
We do a bluegrass jam. Yeah. And we also have an acoustic blues jam.
Wow.
So keeping those folks engaged and letting them know that they're not forgotten, and that because they're all missing the engagement as well. I think it's important for us all to maintain that engagement with them ongoing. And of course, Dave Eschbach says there will be cake. We have that to look forward to as well. Cake and pie and tea and smiles.
It's gonna be a long time before open mics can come back because of the sharing of the mic is inherently a problem. So what we did was we switched all of our open mics into showcases. So we just invite 2, 3, 4 people to come, and we just have separate mics for all of them and rotate them on and off the stage one at a time. And that's how we've been able to keep our our storytelling, our poetry night, our bluegrass, our acoustic blues, and our regular Monday open mics all going.
Such an inspiration. Really, you are.
Yeah.
Really, I'm getting all kinds
Well.
of, my mind is really going, like, what can
Oh,
we do?
great.
How can we do this? Truly. I wish we could
Yeah.
visit. I'm not ready to get out on the road for anything, but as soon as we can.
You bet.
Well, I think a couple of wonderful things have come of this. You talked about a shared membership benefit. Perhaps there's a consortium, a group that just says, you come up with a name and your membership benefits are good at each of these 3 or 4 places, and also I think a field trip is in the future for as many folks from each organization, each group, to take a trip to the other friend's venue at some point in the distant future.
We had a visit maybe 2 years ago from somebody from the Caffé Lena community, a solo gentleman, and I'm embarrassed I don't remember his name, but I don't. And I don't.
I think our board president, Stanley McGahee, might have come down to visit you.
Yeah.
And then so I have a child in Kentucky now and go back and forth to take him to school, and that takes me right near you. So I took a selfie outside of Godfrey Daniels about a year ago and emailed it to Ramona.
Yeah, I think that was in August when we were down, August or early September. Yeah.
I'm thinking like we rent a van. And we get in a van.
And a driver.
8 or 10 of us just descend upon Saratoga Springs, and you all come to Bethlehem and to Boston. Well, I just want to hit a couple more comments here. Dave Fry says Michael Gerling is a good friend of his as well. And he says also, Sarah, thanks for your explorations in this new age. Lots to learn from. Yep, Jeff Huff mentions that he was in an outdoor open mic. Each performer brought their own microphone.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
That's neat.
Yeah. Tahia also advocating for a road trip. And Catherine Rondeau, both of your venues are national treasures, of course. Yes,
Thank
wonderful.
you.
Oh, ladies, it's been a wonderful time talking. I think we've come to the 1 hour mark on this. I appreciate both of you being here. I have learned quite a bit myself, and I hope you both did as well. And I hope the folks watching and commenting did. This is very beneficial. So the one thing we have to do before we leave is we have to attempt a high five on the screen. So somehow the two of you have to be able to go palm to palm.
There we go.
On there. I'm going to tell you what. You two are the best yet. That was the fastest. It happened like with no effort. Thank you. Thank you so much. More here.
We're connected.
Louise Baker, thank you. We will make it through. And
Yes,
Tina, thank you, ladies. All right.
Thanks so much, Sarah.
I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
I'll chat with
Have
you
a good
again
night,
soon.
everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much, everybody, for watching today. This was a wonderful time. I want to mention again what we have here is we were talking with Ramona LaBarre, Managing Director at Godfrey Daniels of Bethlehem, PA. If you would like to find out more about Godfrey's, that is godfreydaniels.org. If you have any interest in making a donation, there is a donate button on that website. Sarah Craig, Executive Director at Caffé Lena, Saratoga Springs, New York. That is cafelena.org. And I am certain that there will be a way to donate to Caffé Lena as well if you are so inclined. We're going to mention Save Our Stages, NIVA Association. So it's National Independent Venue Association. I'm going to start that over again because there's so many words. National Independent Venue Association. I'm not going to say the website name because it's not an actual word, and that's what trips me up. Two things I want to show you here, which I meant to do earlier. Thank you to Godfrey Daniels. Since 1976, your original live music listening room providing so much for our community here. And the brand new unveiling of the Caffé Lena logo that Sarah sent to me earlier looks quite powerful. It certainly does. And I also want to tell you that next week, Kelly Lynn Knott, she's a singer-songwriter, she's an educator, but recently she has become one of the most valuable and sought-after live stream technology consultants in the folk community. She is in Hawaii, and so she's able to do this from wherever she may be. You might have heard of her from her singer-songwriter experience, but she's also behind the scenes in a lot of these live stream experiences that you're watching, and we're going to talk to her about that next week. I, for one, am quite fascinated. She was helpful to me on one of the Godfrey's Parlor sessions very recently, so I appreciate her help, and I'll be very happy to talk with her. Thank you so much, and we will...